Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Mallikarjun. Right, today I'm gonna be, continue with my previous topic where we stopped at my question number 10, I believe. We have completed this interesting questions and answer discussion, and then till 10 questions we have answered, last session. Today I'm gonna talk about question number 11 onwards. And then if you missed out my previous sessions, always go back to YouTube and search for Malik034 and then refer my previous debate challenge 4, 3, 2, 1. And then this is going to be debate challenge 5. And then already answers are also posted in my blog, malik034blogspot.com. You can refer those questions and answers over there as well as on my YouTube channel. Right, let's continue with this question number 11. Question number 11 goes like this. If we detected some of the block corruption, on one or multiple data files in your physical standby database, how you will recover this block corruption on your physical standby database? So again, like going back to the basic concept, block corruption. So Oracle database, runs under that particular the granularity of Oracle data block. Oracle data block may be of your 8K, 16K, 32K, right? So if these blocks are corrupted on a production database, we can easily, with the help of valid backups, we can do recover that particular block and then that particular data file number, and then it will work out. But if the block corruption happened on your physical standby, then how you will recover them? So we do have this block db underscore block underscore checking, db underscore block underscore checksum, db ultra safe, and then db last write protect. These parameters in both primary and standby, this can prevent in first place. So it will prevent your data block getting corrupted in first place, right? So these are like very important parameters. We're going to set it out on both production and then standby database. Right. We can set the above parameter which will prevent this block corruption. Obviously, that's one of the preventive action what we can set it out before we get into this block corruption. In case of if the corruption happened, then especially if we are having a physical standby which is of active data guard database, which will perform corruption detection and prevent that corruption and automatically repairs it. If you're having, remember, if you're having this active data guard database license, that active data guard is a separate license. You have to buy it from Oracle. Once you have this active data guard license, you don't need to worry at all if you about your physical standby. If there's a corruption in the blocks at your physical standby side, it'll first place, it'll check for that corruption detection, and then it will try to prevent if there's any further corruption, and then automatically it repair that corrupted blocks. Whereas in normal physical standby database, so we need to manually recover those corruption blocks using a valid production backup. You no need to have your backup from the standby side. If you have your backup from the production side, you can use those backups and then you can recover those corrupted blocks manually in case of normal physical standby database. In case of active data guard database, you no need to worry because it has a built-in mechanism. Automatically, those corrupted blocks will be recovered. Right, so this is the Oracle mask note 282.169.9.1. So recovering a logical block corruption in a physical standby database. So that talk about the logical corruption. So same thing applies to your physical corruption as well. So we are going to check these important views. $, database underscore block underscore corruption, which will give you a list of corrupted blocks. And then the simple command, manual command at the RMAN level, recover block of data file 7 of block 3, whatever the block number, we're going to just mention that one. Right, so that's about block corruption. And then going to the question number 12, production database archive destination is full. What is your immediate workaround or the fix for that? Considering the scenario, your archive destination is set to FRA, your archive destination is set to some custom location other than FRA. So these are the two case scenarios, like how you're going to deal with this one. Considering case 1, your archive destination is set in FRA. So we have multiple options to resolve that issue. So we can increase FRA size, and there is a free space available if the physical location, whatever that FRA, for example, if you use your own FRA, like you /FRA is your mount point. If that mount point has a physical location, physical space available, you can immediately increase your FRA location and then the issue will be fixed. Delete the older archeologs if possible from your FR location. If FR location, you can go ahead and delete your older archeolog which are already applied on your standby side. If they're not applied, then don't delete them because it's going to lead your DR goes out of sync, right? And then take a RMAN backup with a delete input. Take a RMAN backup of your archeologs with a delete input. It will immediately delete the archeologs from your FR location. And then immediately space will be released from your FR location, and then your database will be back to functional. And then temporarily change your archeolog destination to some temporary location. Your archeolog destination is pointing to FRA location. You can temporarily change that location from FRA to some other /archive /user on archive or whatever it is. And then move some of the archive logs or the files. If you have like auto backup or the backups into your FRA location, move some of those files from your FRA location to some temporary location. And later, once you fix that space issue in your FRA, you can move them back. So these are considering the scenario, your uh, archive destination is set to your FRA location, right? And then second scenario, your archive destination is not on FRA, it is somewhere under temporary location. Then what you can do? Again, same answers for this also. If you are having like /archive is your archive location, and if that location is full, you defined with 100 GB of FRA. So 100 GB of archive destination. That archive destination is full, or you it is like physically logically available another 100 GB, but if you do df-h that mount point is full, then you can immediately increase LUN size and you can increase that archive destination size if the physical space is available on that /archive destination, right? So the same concept you can do it over here. Same thing goes to your ASM disk group. If the ASM disk group is pointing to /FRA location and then it has a physically available, and then you can go ahead and then increase that one, or you can simply add the disk and then the space will be get increased. Delete the older archeolog if possible from your not FRA, from your archive location, right? Same thing goes to your archive location here. And then take a RMAN backup with a delete input. Take all the archeolog backup with a delete input so that all the archeologs will be backed up and it will be like deleted, and then the space will be released automatically. Temporarily change your archive destination from that /FRA to /FRA1, FRA2 or some other location temporarily, right? And then move some of the files from your archive, not FRA, it will be like archive location to some temporary location. And then that also will fix the same answers for with irrespective for FRA, or if your archive destination is set to some custom location, the answers are going to be same, but how you're going to deal with which is the best option is going to fit for you, you can choose that one, right? Right, going to the next question, question number 13. Your standby or the DR database goes out of sync, then how you will make it in sync with your production? Considering the scenario, few archives log gap, few archives are missing, a few archive log gap is there, and then huge archive log gap is there, and then archive logs are deleted or missing from the primary without applying your standby. So then all these three cases, how we're gonna deal with that one, right? The answer goes like this. Any of this scenario, right? Like all the answers are going to be same. For example, right? Like see here, um, case one, like only few archeologs. Uh, if it's a temporary network issue, then file underscore server or file underscore client and your RFS remote fetch server and your LNS or archive services, it will resend your missing archeolog from the primary to standby, and then it will resolve the gap. That's a known factor. Uh, and then the basic fundamental is like you have to fix that network issue. Why that archive gap is arrived? Maybe your MRP was not running, or maybe your archive destination 2 was somebody has disabled, deferred it. Because of that, archeologs are not sending it to your standby side. Or maybe there is some network issue between production and standby side. Because of that, archives are not shipping on your standby side. So you have to fix that issue. Once you fix it, your file underscore server, file underscore client, your RFS remote file server, remote fetch server, or your LNS or your archive process on your production side, they will send it out and it will be applied on your DR set automatically. If the few archeologs are gap, no need to worry, automatically it will be resolved. And there's a huge archeolog gap. What you can do, you can like copy those missing archeologs. Like, if for some reason those archeologs are not copying, so you can manually copy those archeologs from the production to standby side and then register them, and then you can start your MRP. Copy those missing archeologs to your standby side and catalog them, and then start your MRP. Automatically those archeologs will be applied on your standby side. That's for your case number one. Only few archeologs you can do this one. And then the second case, like, huge archeolog gap, like hundreds, thousands of archeolog gap, you cannot copy it manually, or you cannot wait for your network to sync it automatically. So you can do a roll forward incremental restore by taking incremental backup from prod and restore it on the DR, or do a roll forward automatic incremental restore using service based restore, starting with the 12C. Starting with the 12C, we have this service based roll forward in your standby side. You can use this. So use archeolog, you can do this, any one of these two methods. Incremental backup on primary side and restore it on the DR side. Or without backup, you can directly do a service based restore from your DR side. It will automatically connect to your primary and then take a backup and it will restore it on your target side, right? And then again, it's going to be same thing for your case number 3 also. If the archeologs are deleted in your primary side without applying on your standby side, so the same answers whatever I given on case number 2, the same thing goes to case number 3 as well. So these are the two mass document. So the first one is like, performing a roll forward of physical standby database using your RMAN incremental backup. The document number is 836986.1, or the roll forward of physical standby database using service based roll forward. That's like 1897763.1, right? So that's these are the two important document from the MOS, from the Oracle. Right, so moving further, question number 14, what is TFA in RAC, where we can configure TFA client side or server side? What TFA is, will the TFA support DML statement? TFA stands for transparent application failover. TFA can be configured both on server side as well as your client side, but best recommendation is to always go with the server side configuration. So server side configuration, service attributes are used to server side to hold the TFA configuration. So basically you're going to do this TFA configuration on your server side using a service ETL. And the client side, we can make use of TNS name.ora file on the client side, and then we can configure TFA. So the best recommended approach is always go with the server side TFA configuration. And then the transparent application failover, in case any instance crashed, the application sessions will be failed over to active instances, and the select statement will be like returned again. Uh, it will be configured on the server side. It won't support DML statement. So what exactly I'm trying to explain here, you have 4 node rack here, and then out of the 4 node rack, for example, this you have your 4 node cluster here, and then your application is connected here. And in case of this instance or node goes down, automatically your session will be failed over to any one of the surviving node. And then if it's a select statement, and then automatically it will be filled over, and then whichever the point it has filled over, and it'll continue to that point. And then if it's a insert, update, delete, DML operations, and then those will be not failed over, customer has to the application user has to resubmit those queries. Only select statement will be failed over if session is connected to node 1, it has executed 50% of the data using that select statement, and then remaining 50% it will fail over here, and then it will start it from here, from the 51%. So the select statement is supported with the TFA failover supported, and if it's a DML, insert, update, delete, or the DDL, whatever it is, they have to resubmit it again. Right, so that's about TFA, and then we'll configure server side, and the TFA will not support DML statement. That's the answer. And server side is the very best option. You can configure on server side. The answer is like, you can configure both on server side and the client side, but I can say best recommendation. Best recommendation is to configure on server side, and the TFA will not support for your DML operations, right? That's about TFA. And then question number 15, what are the cache fusion? What is split brain syndrome? What is simple majority rule? And then why we should have an odd number of voting disk? What happens if we have even number of voting disk? Right, very interesting questions. Most of the time they will ask an interview question. Cache fusion, transferring the block from one cluster instances to other cluster instances. That basically database buffer cache to buffer cache from SGA to SGA. Suppose if I have a 4-node rack cluster, if the block is available on node 1 and the user sessions connected on node 2, 3, 4 needs the same block, then directly blocks will be transferred from uh, node 1 and then not pull it from the data file or the disk. So that's called your cache fusion. Like, basically transferring from one node to other node, one SJ to other SJ, one buffer cache to other buffer cache. That's called cache fusion. The cache fusion will use the cluster private network to transfer the blocks. Split brain syndrome, if the nodes are not able to communicate each other, uh, then each cluster nodes act as a individual clusters. And this situation is called as a split brain syndrome. When the cluster get into a split brain syndrome, any of the cluster nodes which are not communicating, those will be evicted from my cluster based upon the voting disk. And then based upon the simple majority rule, whichever nodes writing more data on my voting disk will be kept on my cluster, and whichever nodes return less data into my voting disk will be evicted from the cluster. That is called a simple majority rule. Always it's recommended to keep odd number of voting disk to meet the simple majority rule. What exactly simple majority rule? Keeping odd number of voting disk will help us to resolve the split brain syndrome situation. And then if we have a odd number of voting disk, it's easy to identify which nodes are written more data into my voting disk, which nodes are written less data into my voting disk. Whichever nodes written less data into my voting disk will remove it from the cluster. Whichever nodes written more data into my voting disk will preserve within my cluster nodes. So this is the rule, truncate n by 2 plus 1. N is the number of voting disk where n should be greater than 1. For example, if I have a 4-node cluster and then I have 3 voting disk, if I put it at 3 by 2, it will become 1. Truncate means, like, it will become 3 by 2, 1.5 plus 1, and then if you do truncate, it will become 2. So out of those 3 voting disk, whichever the cluster node return 2 voting disk, will keep it in part of cluster, and whichever cluster nodes are written lesser than 2 voting disk will be removed from a cluster. That's the meaning of your simple majority rule. And then 2 other important factor about your split brain syndrome and cache fusion and then simple majority rule: network heartbeat and disk heartbeat. Network heartbeat is like node to node communication via private network. Disk heartbeat is like node to voting disk communication via private network. So in the network heartbeat, we can use a network ping. In the disk heartbeat, we're going to use a disk ping. Right. So that's about your cache fusion and split brain syndrome. So moving to the next question and last question for today, I have a server where 10 standalone databases were running on the file system and multiple Oracle homes. If the somebody deleted my etc tab file, and then how you can identify which database belongs to which server. For example, if I can draw it here diagram. Right. So for this question, right, I'll write here. I'll take this one. This is my server here, and then I have my DB1, DB2, and then I have my T1, and I have T2, and I have my F1, my F4, like whatever it is. Like these are like understanding. These are multiple databases we're running from your 19C DB home underscore 1, 19C DB home underscore 2, DB home underscore 3, and then your 12C DB home underscore 1, and then 12C DBM underscore 2. There are multiple Oracle homes, and there are multiple databases are associated to that Oracle home. For example, DB1 is part of 19C1, and then DB2 is part of 19C2, and then T1, T2 database are part of 12C DB home 1. F1, F4 are part of my 12C DB home 2. So in case of if you lose your etc Ora tab, etc Ora tab will be having the respective database or the instance IDs and then the respective Oracle homes. So if you lose your etc Ora tab file, then how you will identify, how you will find it out, what is your where is your databases, what are databases are associated with which Oracle home, right? So very tedious. If you have your own inventory, you store it locally, you can easily find it out. If you don't have it, then very tedious. So there are different way to find it out, like check your listener config files and then your listener status and find out which database are registered with that listener, and then and from which Oracle home that listener is running, you can map those databases with that particular Oracle home. And then check your respective TNS name.ora file under each Oracle home, and then match those TNS admin TNS name.ora file which Oracle home their file are residing and which database are configured. You can try to map them and check for your central inventory, inventory.xml. That central inventory will be like user own app or inventory, contact.xml, inventory.xml. You can find out that central inventory by checking etc vora inst.loc. That will give you a central inventory location. By that central inventory, you can find it out what are their actual or reactive Oracle homes, and then you can try to map those. And then try to check your local inventory, inventory.xml, which will be under your each Oracle homes. Oracle home, or inventory, context.xml, inventory.xml, or comps.xml. By mapping those inventories, local inventory and central inventory of the respective Oracle home, and then the central inventory, you can map those databases from that particular Oracle home. And then if you can, we can find out using the password file under respective Oracle home, under DBS location. We'll be having a Vara PWD followed by SID or the DB name. And then whatever the password file we have it under Oracle home, we can map those databases to that particular Oracle home. And if you are configured, if somebody has configured with a batch profile or some profile script or custom script, and then if those are defined over there, so you can map them. Or if you have any local Excel file or inventory managing it out, you can map those databases to that particular Oracle home. All right, that's pretty much answers what I wanted to cover it for today. We'll see you on our next session, guys. Thank you. Bye bye.